Today's task is focused on using formal language. So I will be looking at the task and going through the sorts of language that you should be using and pointing out examples of informal language which would not be appropriate for our IELTS writing. So here is the task. We can see here that we've got examples of language which is not formal enough for academic writing. And for the IELTS, of course, you will be completing an example of academic writing. So we need to know what sort of language we should be using. I can see Umair has joined the class. Hello, Omar. Great to see you today in Pakistan. Wonderful. Okay. So let's have a look at the first sentence. The popularity of camera phones has made it more and more tricky. Okay, so this is an informal way of communicating a comparative form, and we need to assess this, and we need to find a more formal way of making a comparison. So let's see how we could do this. Let me know in the chat if you have any suggestions, but instead of more and more tricky, we want to use a different expression, and a more formal way of expressing more and more would be to use the adverb increasingly. So we write that in here. Increasingly is the word we want to use. So we can just don't want it to be too thick. Okay, so we can, oh dear. So we can just eliminate that one. So we've got increasingly, and let's just erase this. And rather than tricky, a more formal way of expressing tricky is to say difficult. So we've got two words we can use here, increasingly difficult. Okay, let's just make it smaller for a moment just so we can check the options that we have. We've got increasingly here, so we can just eliminate this option. And difficult as well, we can eliminate that. So that's the first one. Moving on to the next example. So to prevent people from taking photos of things, well, instead of taking photos, we can use the verb photographing. So we can use that here. Okay, make this bigger again. Not got a lot of space here, but just get that word in at the side. Yep, so that's photographing that we've got just there. Photographing of things. Well, things is very general, it's very informal. So rather than using taking photos of things, we can say photographing images is what we can say. And we can just write that just in here. Yeah, so photographing images. and they shouldn't record. Shouldn't is a contraction, and we shouldn't use contractions generally in formal writing. So instead of shouldn't, we can just change shouldn't to should not. So let's just cross off the ones that we've used. We've got images. Okay, and EG is a short version of for example. So we can write that in here. So instead of EG, just write for example. Okay, so this is what we've got so far then. These are the options we want to use for the first sentence. Did you get the same options? Did you make any different choices? Let's see. So hello to Mina and also to Shristi. Alice, yes, the time has changed. In the UK, we have now gone back 1 hour. So for the countries where the clock has not changed, then we are an hour later than we were previously. So I hope that hasn't caused too much consternation or confusion. Apologies if it has. Mina, you would like to know about buying an OET course? I would say go to the OET website, the Swoosh English website, and you will find information there relating to this, Mina. Okay, so moving on to have a look at the second sentence. Again, as I say, let me know if you have any suggestions on the words we should use. So, but is informal. It's an informal way to begin a sentence. Rather than using but, we can use however. Okay, this is a more formal term. And when we use however at the beginning of a sentence, it should be followed with a comma. So however, now there's, so again, there's, we're using a contraction. We don't want to use contractions in formal writing. So rather than using there's, we would use there is. Okay, so we've used this already. A system that can find out. Well, find out is an example of a phrasal verb. Phrasal verbs are informal, so it has the same meaning in this context as detect. So that's what we should use. So detect any camera phones and send out another phrasal verb. Let's change that to emit. And emit rays of light to mess up. Very informal, mess up, another phrasal verb. So distort would be the one to use here. And finally, any pictures they take. A little bit too general, a bit too vague. So the word here, the only option we've got left will be subjects, any subjects they take. Okay. In fact, a better option for this would be images. Any images they take. And because we've used images before, I'm going to change that just at the top here to subjects. So instead of things, subjects. Things is such a general word that it could refer to images or subjects, but definitely pictures, a better synonym for pictures is images. So let's put subjects just here. Okay, so those are the answers that we should have gotten to the task. Hopefully you got the same answers overall, and hopefully this will help you recognize what sort of language is and is not appropriate for IELTS writing. So avoid contractions, avoid phrasal verbs, and avoid very vague and general language, and use specific language wherever appropriate. Okay, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Until then, take care.